There is a concept in game theory called information asymmetry. It is the idea that in any transaction, any relationship, any negotiation, the party with more information wins. It sounds obvious, but here is what most people fail to understand. The information that matters most is not about the market, not about the product, not about the deal. It is about you. Every time you react emotionally in a high-stakes moment, you are transferring information to your opponent. Every time you say, "I really need this to work out." Every time your voice rises when you talk about your dream. Every time you check your phone anxiously waiting for a response. You are broadcasting your desperation, your need, your leverage position. The billionaires who built wealth through negotiation, not just by building great products, but by taking calculated, strategic positions, understood this instinctively. Warren Buffett is famous for something that sounds almost pathological to modern observers. He will sit in a meeting for hours and say almost nothing. He will listen to a full pitch, sometimes $100 million on the line, and respond with a single quiet question, or silence, and the other party unable to read him, unable to gauge his interest, unable to confirm their pitch is landing. They keep talking. They fill the silence. They reveal everything, their urgency, their alternatives, their price floor. Buffett calls it patience. Psychologists call it strategic passivity. In practice, it is a deliberate psychological move designed to make the other side uncomfortable enough to hand over their leverage voluntarily. This is not manipulation in the crude sense. It is information warfare at the highest level. Dr. Joseph Henrich, an evolutionary psychologist at Harvard, has documented that throughout human history, status signaling worked in both directions. Low-status individuals signal constantly through displays of wealth, through verbal dominance, through visible effort. High-status individuals, by contrast, develop what Henrich calls prestige opacity. They signal selectively. They withhold. Because the moment you show your full hand, you lose the ability to control the narrative. Consider the poker analogy directly. The best poker players in the world, professionals who earn their living reading micro-expressions across a table, will tell you that the most dangerous opponent is not the aggressive one. It is the quiet one, the one you cannot get a read on, the one who folds without irritation and bets without excitement, the one whose face has become a wall. You are already in this game. The question is whether you are playing it or being played. Here is the counterintuitive truth about the poker face. It is not about suppression. It is about restructuring. Most people think emotional masking means hiding feelings, white-knuckling your way through tension, forcing a neutral expression over a volcanic interior. That approach fails. It fails because suppression leaks. Psychologist James Gross at Stanford ran a series of studies in the 1990s that became foundational in emotional regulation research. His conclusion: people who actively try to suppress an emotion show reduced facial expression but increased physiological arousal. Their heart rate goes up, their skin conductance spikes, and crucially, the people across from them notice, not consciously perhaps, but somewhere in the ancient threat detection hardware of the human brain, the incongruence registers. Something seems off. Something seems controlled, and when something seems controlled, people grow suspicious. The billionaires and high performers who operate with true emotional opacity are not suppressing. They have done something deeper. They have restructured how they relate to outcomes. This is where Stoic philosophy and dark psychology converge in a way that most self-help content completely misses. Epictetus, a man who was born into literal slavery, who owned nothing, who had no power over his physical circumstances, built one of the most complete frameworks for psychological sovereignty ever written. The Enchiridion opens with what sounds like a simple distinction. Some things are in our power, and some things are not. But read it again more carefully in the context of negotiation and competition. What Epictetus is actually describing is a method for eliminating the emotional tells that reveal your leverage. If you genuinely do not need this deal, your face shows it. If you genuinely do not need this person's approval, your posture shows it. If you genuinely do not need this outcome, and you have done the philosophical work to reach that place, the game changes entirely. The character Ayano Koji Kiyotaka from the anime series Classroom of the Elite has become something of a cultural symbol for this exact principle, and it is worth examining why millions of young people globally find him so compelling. He is not the strongest. He is not the loudest. He does not chase status or validation. His defining feature is his face, which reveals nothing, but his eyes, which calculate everything. He is the embodiment of what psychologists call high monitoring, low disclosure. He takes in an enormous amount of information while releasing almost none. The dark psychology literature calls this the asymmetric engagement principle. You gather, they reveal. The more you can make someone feel they are in a relationship of open exchange, of mutual vulnerability, while actually maintaining strict informational control on your side, the more powerful your position becomes. Now, to be clear, there is an ethical dimension here. The difference between manipulation and strategy lies in intent. The poker face billionaire is not trying to harm the other party. They are simply refusing to be harmed first. They are setting the terms of the informational exchange. That is not immoral. It is essential. Here is how this plays out in real wealth-building scenarios. When Howard Schultz was building Starbucks, he made a habit of never revealing his expansion timeline to landlords or competitors. When he walked into a lease negotiation, no one on the other side of the table knew whether he needed that location or was considering 3 others simultaneously. He cultivated what his team described as a calm certainty that made it impossible to tell whether they were his first choice or his last resort. That ambiguity was worth millions of dollars in rent reductions and lease terms over the life of the company. When Jeff Bezos launched Amazon Web Services, competitors underestimated him for years, in part because he made almost no public statements about its trajectory. The silence was strategic. The opacity was competitive moat. Here is where theory becomes practice. Building a genuine poker face, one that is not a performance but a psychological reality, requires work at 4 levels. Level 1, the pause protocol. Before any response in a high-stakes interaction, you install a mandatory pause, not a hesitation, a pause. The difference is internal. A hesitation signals uncertainty. A pause signals deliberation. It signals that you are in no rush, that your words are chosen, not reactive. Practical version of this: before speaking in any negotiation, any conflict, any moment where your position matters, breathe once fully before the first word leaves your mouth. This single practice done consistently begins to restructure how you are perceived within weeks. People will describe you as calm, as composed, as having presence. What they are actually responding to is the information signal your pause sends. This person is not chasing. This person does not need my approval to proceed. Level 2, need elimination. This is the Stoic layer. You must actively and deliberately reduce your psychological attachment to any single outcome before entering a high-stakes environment. The way you do this is not by pretending you do not care, it is by constructing genuine alternatives. Before every important negotiation, every important meeting, every important pitch, spend 10 minutes identifying specifically what you will do if this goes wrong. Not as a fear exercise. As a freedom exercise, know your alternatives so thoroughly that the worst case becomes just another path. This is Marcus Aurelius's premeditation of adversity weaponized for modern competitive contexts. When you walk into a room knowing you can walk out intact regardless of the outcome, your face changes. Your body language changes. The room feels it. Level 3, selective revelation. The poker face is not about total silence. Total silence is a tell of its own. It reads as hiding something, which creates suspicion rather than power. Strategic power comes from selective, controlled disclosure. High performers reveal small things, preferences, minor opinions, past experiences freely and warmly. This makes them appear open. It creates a sense of reciprocal vulnerability. But the things that actually matter, their financial position, their desperation level, their timeline, their alternatives, remain locked. Think of it as a controlled information diet for the people around you. Feed them enough to trust you, never enough to leverage you. Level 4, response delay under pressure. This is the hardest one to master. When you are under emotional pressure, when someone challenges you, when a deal appears to be falling apart, when someone says something designed to provoke a reaction, the automatic response is immediate. The primitive brain wants resolution now. The practice here is what psychologist Viktor Frankl described as the space between stimulus and response. Frankl survived the Nazi concentration camps and came out with a single core insight. The last freedom is the freedom to choose how you respond. In wealth-building and competitive contexts, that space is literal money. The person who can delay their reaction by even 3 seconds controls the frame. Build this through deliberate exposure. Put yourself in mildly uncomfortable social situations and practice not responding immediately. Practice asking a clarifying question instead of answering one. Practice saying, "Let me think about that," when every instinct tells you to fire back. There is a story about Andrew Carnegie, steel magnate, once the wealthiest person on earth, that most people in business education gloss over because it does not fit the clean narrative of industrious genius. Carnegie had a habit that his business partners found unnerving. In difficult negotiations, with suppliers, with railroad magnates, with politicians, he would sometimes go completely silent for extended periods. Not just quiet. Silent. He would sit and watch the other party negotiate against themselves, filling the silence with concessions he had never asked for. One of his executives, Charles Schwab, described it in a letter. Mr. Carnegie would sit at a table for what felt like an eternity without speaking, and by the time he finally said one word, the other man had already given away half of what he had come to protect. This was not rudeness. It was not passivity. It was the result of a deep philosophical conviction Carnegie held, that most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they will surrender position to fill it. He called this tendency in his private journals the noise of need. The noise of need is what leaks from people who have not done the psychological work. You hear it when someone talks too much about how great a business opportunity is. You see it when someone checks in too frequently on a deal in progress. You feel it when someone laughs too quickly at the boss's joke. The noise of need is the tell. And Carnegie, self-taught, not from a wealthy family, arriving in America with almost nothing, identified it early and used it as a compass. Here is the transformation story that ties all of this together. Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, the largest hedge fund in history, spent a decade building a reputation for radical transparency in his personal leadership style. He documented everything. He encouraged criticism. He built a company culture around open feedback. On the surface, this looks like the opposite of the poker face. But look more carefully. What Dalio was actually doing was controlling the type of information that flowed. He was radically transparent about process, about values, about principles. He was opaque about positions, about strategy, about the specific bets Bridgewater was placing in the market. While the culture of openness made him appear fully known, fully readable, the actual financial architecture of how the firm operated remained among the most secretive on Wall Street. Dalio himself writes in Principles, "I learned that the most powerful position is to be both understood and unpredictable. Let people know who you are, never let them know what you will do next." That is the poker face of silent wealth building at its highest expression. You are not a mystery. You are not cold. You are not isolated. You are warm, present, engaged, and completely unreadable on the things that matter. The long game is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is about being the most composed. It is about making decisions from a place of such deep equanimity that the volatility of external circumstances, markets, relationships, setbacks, criticism lands on you like water on stone. Wealth in its deepest form is not a number. It is a state of psychological sovereignty, and sovereignty cannot be taken from someone who reveals nothing about what they need. CTA 1213 Min, if this resonated with you, if something in this felt like a missing piece you have been circling around for a while, then this channel exists for exactly that reason. MindsetMaster is built for people who are serious about the psychological architecture of achievement, not motivation, not hype. The deep, uncomfortable, honest study of how power, composure, and wealth actually operate. If you are building that in yourself, subscribe. Not because it helps the algorithm, though it does, but because what we cover here compounds. The next video will take what you just heard further, and every piece connects. Outro 1315 Min, here is the thought to carry with you. Every room you walk into is a negotiation. Every conversation is a game of information exchange. And most people are playing it unconsciously, revealing their hand, broadcasting their need, surrendering their leverage before the first word is spoken. The poker face billionaire is not born, they are built. Through philosophy, through practice, through the deliberate restructuring of how they relate to outcomes. Epictetus built it in chains. Carnegie built it in poverty. Dalio built it through decades of failure and refinement. The architecture is available to you right now. The pause, the alternatives, the selective disclosure. The space between stimulus and response. Silence is not weakness, composure is not coldness, opacity is not emptiness. In the right hands, in your hands, it is the most powerful signal you can send. Stay silent, build, let the results speak for themselves. SEOTAGS. Poker face psychology, dark psychology wealth, stoicism wealth mindset, sigma mindset, silent success, Ionakoji dark psychology, emotional control billionaire, wealth building psychology, stoic discipline, dark psychology secrets, high performance mindset, information asymmetry wealth, Carnegie psychology, stoic billionaire mindset, dark psychology stoicism description. Most people are losing a war they don't even know they're in. Every time you show your excitement, your desperation, or your need, you hand your competitors leverage over you. The wealthiest, most powerful people in history understood one dark psychological truth. The less you reveal, the more you control. In this video, we break down the poker face psychology used by Carnegie, Buffett, Bezos, and Ray Dalio to build and protect silent wealth. From the Stoic philosophy of Epictetus to modern dark psychology and emotional regulation research, This is the blueprint for building psychological sovereignty. You'll learn why emotional suppression fails and what actually works, the four-level system for building a genuine poker face, how information asymmetry is the real currency of negotiation, the Carnegie silence strategy that won millions at the table, whether you're building a business, navigating competition, or simply tired of being read by people around you. This is the framework. 0000 hook. The silent war around you 0045. The information war you're already losing 0300. The architecture of unreadability 0610. Building the mask. Practical system 0900. The Carnegie paradox and the long game 1215. Final thought, dark psychology, stoicism, sigma mindset, wealth mindset, poker face, high performance, mindset master.